This week we're going to talk a little bit about something we dread and we fear in this hobby. That's right, power outages. Let's get into it. What's going on, reefers? My name's Blaine. This is the King Tide Corals channel. If you guys are tuning in this week, I want to say thanks for stopping by and checking out the channel. If you guys are new, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you guys don't miss out on any future upload. This week's a little bit different. I know I missed last week's upload, but I had a lot going on here at the house and also with the tanks in general. If you guys are following me on Instagram, you guys would have known that I experienced a power outage this past Tuesday that ended up running a little over 24 hours in total. It was a really stressful time, and then on top of it all, my crawl space for my house flooded with about 20,000 gallons of water, which ended up flooding my generator, but we'll go into more details about that here in a minute. So what I'm gonna do this week is I'm gonna give you guys a recap of what's going on with the lagoon, the macro shorelines, and just the tanks in general. Also, I'm gonna talk a little bit about what you guys should do in case you guys ever experience a power outage like I did. So let's go ahead, get into it, and check out power outages. So it was last Tuesday at midnight, well, it was almost Wednesday morning, when this all went down, and I heard the lights go out, the power had flicked off, and I'm a pretty light sleeper. So I got up, wanted to check on everything, make sure everything was all right with the house at the time, and I came and checked on the lagoon, and I saw that the MP10 was still pushing water. The temperature of the house was still at a pretty good amount, so I wanted to just go ahead and check on everything, and then I thought I'd try to go back to sleep. But of course, after about a couple hours, I couldn't sleep, and I got back up to start checking on everything, and I decided why not go ahead and check the breaker panel in the side room. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys a little bit outside of what that looks like and what I ended up encountering.
A few moments later.
So at about 2 a.m. I decided I'd get up and check this side room. I came outside instead of going through the house because I wanted to check on outside just to see if anyone else's power was on, and it was just my house. Of course, I didn't notice anyone's power, but I still wanted to flick on these breakers. When I came over here, I realized that right about here was about 5-6 inches of water, and as I opened this side room, there was about 8 inches of water inside this side garage, side storage area room, and I had realized that my entire backup power, which is my generator, was completely flooded. So I was at a loss, and I was a little bit panicked, as you guys would realize, and I decided I had to kind of kick it into high gear, start working on other things. If I were to break down power outages to you guys in much more simple terms and not go into a ton of details, I would focus all of your energy on two things. Of course, it's easier said than done, but the two things I would focus on are oxygen levels and temperature. These two things are key in our reef tanks. Now, of course, it's gonna differ anywhere you're located in the globe. For me, I'm in the Pacific Northwest. It's a lot colder right now than it is maybe in Florida. And so you may not have to focus all your energy on temperature, whereas you focus on the oxygen levels. But of course, I think these two things are the main things we should focus on anytime a power outage occurs. As I just mentioned, there's two categories that I like to really focus on during a power outage. These are all my opinions and just tips and tricks that I'm gonna give you guys that help me out because I didn't have my backup generator to run my tank during this time. When it comes to oxygen levels, one thing I like to do is grab a big pitcher or a bowl and just start pulling water out and then pouring it back in. It's as simple as that, and then you're allowing yourself to bring oxygen back into the tank. I like to do that a couple times and do it every 15 to 30 minutes to make sure I'm maintaining proper levels. When it comes to temperature, there's a few different things you can do, but the things that I did during this power outage were the following. I wrapped my entire tank in blankets and towels to help insulate it, not allow any heat to escape. Also, I taped hand warmers to the tank because glass is a really great conductor of heat, and it'll kind of absorb that temperature from the outside and help disperse the heat throughout the tank. The third and final thing I did was I took a Ziploc bag, filled it up with warm water, and then I put it in the back chamber. Once it came to the temperature of the tank water, I'd pull it out, replenish with more warm water, and then keep repeating that process. Those are a couple of tips and tricks that I used during this time, and if you guys want to look up more, there's a bunch of great sources and videos online that you guys can check out to help you out during a power outage. Now that I've given you guys kind of a breakdown of what happened throughout this entire power outage, I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys a little tour of the lagoon now and the macro shorelines. I know I didn't talk a lot about the macro shorelines during this time, but my main concern was the lagoon. I have a lot more invested in this tank. I have a lot more livestock in this tank. And as of right now, I just have Pistol Pete, hopefully, who made it throughout that power outage. I've yet to see him yet. And I just have, macros inside the macro shoreline. So I didn't have a lot of concern about that tank, whereas I had a ton of concern about the lagoon. So I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys a couple tours of both of the tanks and give you guys a little update what's going on. Let's go ahead and take a look now at what's been going on in the lagoon. As you guys can see from the outside in, all the fish have made it. So that's a huge sigh of relief for myself. And I know I'm a coral junkie and I love all my mushrooms and softies and all that good stuff, but the personalities of the fish outweigh anything. So I was really happy to see all of them had made it. As for inverts, I was surprised to see the 2 clams had made it because honestly I thought they were gonna be the first to go. But they ended up pulling through and they seem to be doing really well. The bismas are doing all right. They're poking their heads out again after a couple days of kind of hiding away. This rock, not so much. As for cleanup crew, just a couple trochus snails made it and the cleaner shrimp. As for the hermits and other snails in the tank, they ended up kicking the bucket, so I'm gonna have to re-up here at the local fish store. But I'm happy to say that none of my more important livestock, such as the clams, the worms, and the fish, did not make it. As for corals, it seems as though quite a bit of zoophragms ended up melting away. I'm not too sure why that happened. You can see a couple empty plugs here and a couple empty spots as well on the rack. Overall though, it seems as though I lost about 4 or 5 plugs of zoas during the outage. As for LPS, I ended up losing both my heads of Indo Gold Torch, so that was kind of a big loss for myself. And the only other softie that did not make it during this process was a couple of my Sunkissed bounces. I had a pretty big family here in the back that was growing really well, and it seems as though about 1 or 2 of them ended up melting away. Overall, the lagoon's doing all right. It's made it through the outage, so let's go ahead and give you guys a little update of the macro shorelines. As mentioned previously, I wasn't super concerned about the macro shorelines. I don't have a ton of stock in here. Of course I'm worried about any kind of creature that I'm keeping, but my main focus was the lagoon. I have a lot invested into that tank, and this tank is fairly new. I don't have many inhabitants, but overall, I wasn't extremely focused on this tank. It seems though the macros did all right. Some of them have started to bounce back. At first, they were looking a little unhappy, but I think that was due to the fact that the temperature in this tank really dropped. I mean, this tank dropped down to about 60, maybe even 62 degrees, and it was getting really cold. But, it's something you deal with. But the one person I'm a little concerned about is Pistol Pete. I've yet to see him, and I'm a little concerned that he may not have made it. But I'm keeping my heart, and hoping that he makes it through. But overall, the macro shorelines, is doing all right and is making through this process. Overall, power outages are never a fun thing to endure, but I want to let you guys know what I went through and what I kind of did to try and keep these tanks healthy during that time. It's not always peaches and roses in this hobby, and I want to be able to share with you guys the ups and the downs as well. I lost some corals, I lost some inverts, but overall I didn't lose any fish, and I didn't lose primarily most of my favorite pieces. And that was the main focus throughout that entire time. I wanted to make sure I didn't lose all my favorite things. It would have really hurt, and it would have been really hard for me to kind of keep going, You put so much time and effort into these tanks, and to just have a single power outage kind of take it away from you, it's really hard to be able to witness that and see it all kind of unfold in front of you. Now, if I could give you guys any advice, I would say have a backup to the backup. Now, I have a generator that I run, and that's normally what I use in any power outage, but sadly, that generator was soaked with water, so I was not able to use that, and I wish I would have had that car inverter prior to any of this happening. I had to wait until the stores opened, and by then the tank had dropped pretty quickly in temperature, so it would have been nice if I would have had that already, and I would have been able to go straight to that as my second source of power rather than having to wait it out. So if I could give you guys an advice, have backups to your backups and backups for that backup, if that makes any sense. But hope you guys enjoyed this week's video. I know it wasn't a super fun one, but it's something I wanted to share with you guys and give you guys a little update of what's been going on and why I missed last week's video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and let's go ahead and have a better week this week, and let's see you next week in a much more fun video. See you guys then. Happy reefing.